We are diving back into the Big Ten Conference, and it's time to talk about the Minnesota Golden Gophers. Another interesting team to try to figure out in 2024, but Minnesota has got a lot of good pieces coming back. Yes, they lose some offensive and defensive talent, but PJ Fleck returns as this head coach. You got some good pieces in from the transfer portal, and in a new look Big Ten Conference, can Minnesota be competitive, and can they even be a sneaky sleeper team in the Big Ten in 2024? Well, you're about to find out what I think here in this video. What's up, Tailgaters? You're in the booth with Tailgate Nate today. I want to welcome you to my channel and welcome you back to prediction season. It's where I'm predicting all 134 FBS level college football teams. That is my goal this summer, which means I'm doing your favorite team. So why don't you hit the subscribe button and ring the bell so you know when your favorite team has a video on my channel. And I want to thank you so much for watching this video, because whether you're a Golden Gopher fan or not, heck, just if you're a fan of college football like I am, it helps support what I do here on YouTube. And you guys can help support the channel by interacting in any way possible. That means liking, commenting, sharing, watching my other videos, of course, subscribing, literally doing anything you can to interact with the channel, because whatever you do to interact with it helps us support it, and I appreciate all the support that I can get. Let's talk about Minnesota in 2024. How do we talk about the Golden Gophers this season? Well, it's just like we talk about every other team, but the first video of mine you're watching, I'm going to tell you, we're going to dive on into the team's offense, dive into the team's defense, and at the end of the day, we will go through the Minnesota football schedule and give it a game-by-game preview and prediction. A couple more things before we do get started here, as you are going to see right over here. Sorry, slide didn't change for a second, but right over here are going to be the stats the team either offensively or defensively put up last season. And of course, for your viewing pleasure, right below the team's logo, I have put the team's coaching staff. So I will waste no more time. Let us get into talking about the Minnesota Golden Gophers offense in 2024. And well, you could definitely say their offense had some struggles. The rushing attack was pretty solid, but they were among one of the worst passing attacks statistically that you did see last season. And they are losing their starting quarterback from a year ago. Ethan Kaliak-Manis has transferred over to play for the Rutgers Scarlet Knights. Go be the quarterback over there. He had 1,838 yards, 14 touchdowns, 9 interceptions on 53% completion percentage last season. And of course, now he will be going over to play with a new program. And Cole Kramer has run out of college eligibility through 17 passes last year, only for 26 yards, couple touchdowns, couple picks, but he is gone as well. So you do get a couple guys in from the portal. Dylan Whitkey comes over from Virginia Tech. A freshman also comes in Drake Lindsay. But the other guy you're getting over from the portal is that presumptive starting quarterback, and his name is Max Brosmer. He is a New Hampshire transfer, and I got to tell you, ever since 2022, he has lit it up with that program. 3,459 yards, 29 touchdowns, and 6 interceptions on 64% completion percentage last year, and all of them were career highs or lows. Career highs in passing yards, career highs in touchdowns, even a career high in yards per completion, and a career low in interceptions with 6. He is definitely going to be giving some pop to this quarterback room that Minnesota lacked last year. And he's going to come in here, again, presumptively being that starting quarterback, and I think he's going to play really, really well for PJ Fleck and this Golden Gopher team. But what kind of talent does Max Brosmer have around him? Well, you do lose a lot of solid pieces in this running back room, as Sean Tyler, Bryce Williams have both run out of eligibility. They've graduated, and Zach Evans has entered the transfer portal. Okay, big deal. You get a lot of guys that are coming back in this room, such as Darius Taylor. He was the leading rusher last year, 799 yards and 5 touchdowns. He almost in a way split carries, only 11 more carries to his counterpart in Jordan Newman, who had 559 yards and 3 touchdowns last season. And a ton of pieces are coming in through the transfer portal. C.A. Bangura, I hopefully am pronouncing that first name right, is a transfer from OU. No, not Oklahoma. I'm talking about the university in Athens, Ohio, with the Ohio Bobcats. And once upon a time in 2022 was a 1,000-yard rusher. Last season had 811 yards with 7 touchdowns back in 2022. 1,078 yards with 13 rushing touchdowns for him, along with a couple other transfers coming over as well. Jaron Mangum, I will fix that spelling there in a second. He comes over from Michigan State, while you get Marcus Major coming over from Oklahoma. So on top of the 2 returning leading rushers, that spelling is fixed now, apologies for that, and the 3 transfers coming into this program, boy, this is a really good running back room for Minnesota, and it's probably going to end up being one of the better rushing attacks the Big Ten Conference has to offer, given the offensive line, which we'll talk about in a second. Wide receiver room does lose some pieces as well, as does the tight end room. We'll talk about them all now. Corey Crooms is gone to the NFL. Second leading receiver last year, had 376 yards. Did not grace the end zone, though. And Chris Ottman-Bell, a guy that's been with the Minnesota Golden Gopher program for what seems like forever, has finally run out of eligibility. He has graduated. Brevin Spanford, the leading receivers among tight ends, and the only other guy besides the number one returning receiver, which we'll talk about here in a second, to get over 100 yards last year, had 239 of them with 2 touchdowns on 25 catches. But again, leading receiver does come back. He led the team in every major category among players with at least 10 catches, 59 catches, 831 yards, 14.1 yards per catch, 8 touchdowns last season. Now, the pass game was not super explosive last year, but Daniel Jackson was a very reliable piece that you could always count on in this passing attack, and he will be again in 2024. Lemeke Brockington and Elijah Spencer will see upticks in their production this year, but what do you know? You dive on into the portal, you get a couple other pieces there as well. Christian Driver is a player coming over from Penn State, and Tyler Williams is a guy that comes over from the Georgia Bulldogs. So 2 very talented players come over from high-profile Power 5 programs. Do give a boost to this wide receiver room. And then the tight end room, no transfers coming in, but you do have a lot of nice returning pieces in Nick Callerup, Jamison Gears, and Pierce Walsh. It will be interesting to see which one of those guys ends up emerging as the lead tight end to replace Brevin Spanford. You do lose J.J. Gadet, I hope I'm saying that last name right, in the transfer portal on the offensive line. Pretty much everyone else, to my knowledge, does come back. Tyler Cooper, Ariante Airsuri, again, and I hope I'm saying that last name right. Apologies for the stutter. Quinn Carroll, Philip Daniels, and Greg Johnson, as well as Aluma Nakele, who comes over, I believe, from UTEP. Yes, it is. The UTEP minor transfer definitely could end up being a starter on the offensive line in 2024. So when you take a look at this Minnesota Golden Gophers offense, it was an offensive line that only allowed 21 sacks last year and was really pretty solid in terms of their ability to open up holes for the running backs. Improved quarterback play is going to come, and that's no slight to Ethan Kaliakmanis. He is just not as good of a quarterback as I believe Max Brosmer is going to be within this system. The running back room has a lot of very good pieces. The wide receiver room, returning Jackson, you get some good transfers. The offensive line should be good again this year. This Minnesota offense, again, definitely probably is not going to be super explosive in 2024, but it definitely could take a tick and a step in the right direction, especially that pass game is going to improve. Who knows, those rushing numbers may jump this upcoming season as well. Now let's go ahead and let's talk about the defense for the Minnesota Golden Gophers. It does lose its fair share of talent, and let's be honest, it wasn't as good as it normally is under a PJ Fleck coach program, at least what we've seen out of Minnesota in the past, especially on third down. 46% allowed on third down is not fantastic. That being said, they did hold teams under 400 yards per game. The rush defense and pass defense definitely had some really good moments in their last season as well. A lot of Golden Gopher fans, I would think, expected to take a step up in 2024, but it does lose some pretty good talent. To the NFL, gone is Kyler Baugh off of the defensive line. Baugh last season, 41 tackles and 3 sacks, second leading tackler among defensive linemen last year. But hey, you do get your leading tackler among defensive linemen back. That was Danny Strigo. You also do get Jalen Logan Redding back here as well. Devin Eastern, Jaw Joyner, who led the team in sacks last year with 7.5 sacks. Logan Richter and Anthony Smith all come back in this defensive line room. And what's adding some more talent? You get some transfers coming into this room, again, from high-profile Power 5 programs. Jackson Howard is over from LSU, a 4-star rated edge rusher. Another edge rusher in Adam Kasei. Again, I hope I'm saying that last name right as well. He comes over from the Clemson Tigers. So again, you just give a boost to that defensive line. Linebacker room does look like this. Ryan Selig is going to be graduated, so he has run out of college eligibility. Pretty good linebacker for this team, 31 tackles for him last year, while Chris Collins does leave to go into the NFL. He was sort of that edge rusher type player. I've put him as a linebacker here, although you could consider him a loss on the defensive line there as well. 18 tackles for him last season. So let's take a look at the linebacker room here. You do have some pretty talented players coming back here. Devin Williams was your 4th leading tackler, tied with that of Maverick Baranowski. Both had 52 tackles and each had a sack last season. Cody Lindenberg, Tyler Stolsky, and Joey Gerlach will also both, or I should say all 3 of them, be coming back to make for a pretty good linebacker room here with this Golden Gopher program. When you take a look at this cornerback room, well, Trayvon Jones has run out of eligibility. He's graduated. tied for the team lead with 8 passes defended last year, had 2 interceptions, and was the team's tied for the team's second leading tackler with 53 tackles. You also do lose Tariq Watson and Tyler Bride through the transfer portal. More depth pieces than anything to my knowledge, although Watson did see double-digit tackles last year with 10 of them. But the biggest loss in the secondary by far is that of Tyler Newman, a really talented safety for this team. Also had 53 tackles, did have a sack in there as well. 4 passes defended, and led the team with 5 interceptions. A very talented safety during his time with this program. You will now see him definitely be playing on Sunday. So your defensive back room looks like this. Justin Wally does come back. Wally also tied for that team lead with 8 passes defended last season, while Zaquan Bryan, Rylan Kelly also come back. And what do you know? Another piece comes in through the transfer portal. Ethan Robinson is here, and he is a transfer over from Bucknell. There is a couple other corner transfers coming in. There's one from TCU, Giante McMillan, as well as I think one community college transfer, but I could definitely be wrong on that. Gopher fans, let me know. When you take a look at the safety room, though, hey, leading tackler does come back. That was Jack Henderson, 59 tackles last year, 2 interceptions with a pass defended. Should be a pretty good safety for the Gophers in 2024. Darius Green, Coleman Bryson, Aiden Galsby, and Kerry Brown all come back, and let's show the kicker some love because, hey, they're people too. No notable losses to me out of the special teams room, so Mark Crawford and Dragon Kesich will both be back to do the punting and kicking duties respectively for this Golden Gopher program. And when you go ahead and take a look all across this Golden Gopher defense, well, it has a lot of good talent on it. Now, trying to fill the shoes of that of Tyler Newman, and even to some extent, the likes of Collins and Selig and Bach could be a little bit difficult. Definitely trying to fill in the shoes of Tyler Newman is going to be the most difficult hole to fill here. However, you have a lot of very talented pieces in the defensive back room, especially in that safety room, even with Tyler Newman being gone. That defensive front 7 returns a lot. You get some very good edge rushers in Howard and Kasai. Again, I hopefully am saying that last name right. If not, please correct me in the comment section below. Apologies for any mispronunciations. Those are 2 guys coming over from great programs. They are some great transfers that will give a boost to already a great defensive line room. Again, I think the questions are more offensive than defensive for Minnesota in 2024. How much does that pass game really improve? And with Max Brosmer at the helm, I think it's going to improve quite a bit. As now we will go ahead and take a look at the Minnesota Golden Gopher football schedule, and it looks like this. All right, how do we predict the Golden Gopher schedule in 2024? Well, let me tell you, any game at home is going to be underlined, while any game on the road is in italics or that slanted text. You'll notice they don't leave home till week 5. Any game highlighted in green is going to be a game that I think is going to be won pretty easily by this Golden Gopher team. Any game in yellow is going to be a close competitive game, but the Gophers will still be able to win. And of course, red is any loss. They start out with a Thursday game in Minnesota in their home field against the North Carolina Tar Heels. And this fairly interesting game last year, I think will be a pretty interesting game yet again in 2024, but I am leaning towards the side of the Golden Gophers. Not only do I think that they have a lot more defensive pieces than what North Carolina has. North Carolina loses a lot of talent off that defensive line. Miles Murphy off the defensive line, and others, not defensive line, entirely defensive side is what I meant to say. North Carolina's also got some questions defensively. They lose a lot of good wide receivers from last year. Of course, you have to mention Drake May, that quarterback being gone. Now, Omarion Hampton does come back, so a good early test for this Minnesota defensive front and company. But again, I think Max Brosmer is going to take this offense to a little bit of new heights. I think this Minnesota passing attack is going to be a little bit better. They're going to be able to attack this North Carolina defense as well as they need to, and this Minnesota defense should be up to code yet again in 2024. So a close competitive game here because North Carolina, again, got a lot of really good pieces. They'll be a solid football team in 2024. I just think Minnesota's better on this occasion, and they beat North Carolina at home to start the season, and then they should get 2 wins over their next 2 games to start out 3-0. They should be able to beat Rhode Island. That's an FCS level team, and even though they probably will have a solid team in 2024, that should be a win for the Golden Gophers, as should the game against the Nevada Wolfpack as well. Nevada is a team that is trying to rebuild in the Mountain West, and to my knowledge, they probably will not have enough pieces, or to my knowledge and to my opinion as well. They don't have enough pieces to compete with Minnesota, so there you go. 3-0 is the start for the Minnesota Golden Gophers, and all 3 games are at home. They get to stay at home for their first Big Ten Conference game against the Iowa Hawkeyes. Similar questions for both of these teams coming into the season. How much does that offense improve? We know Iowa's rushing attack probably going to be pretty solid. They did bring in a new offensive coordinator in Tim Lester, a former head coach with the Western Michigan Broncos. If Cade McNamara stays healthy, there are some solid enough pieces at wide receiver to where that passing attack is absolutely going to take a jump from last year. But this offense was abysmal last season. And to me, this is the Minnesota Golden Gopher offense, or I'd say Minnesota Golden Gopher defense, that's going to be able to take advantage of that. I don't know how much Iowa's offense gets better. Now, I have a feeling that it's going to get better, and it's going to get much better. Maybe not from a statistical standpoint, but just from an eye test and everything like that. Iowa's offense is going to get better, and that defense is still going to be really good. It's going to be one of the elite defenses in college football, but I think Minnesota's got some good offensive pieces here, and I think they beat Iowa in a close game at home to open up Big Ten play. This, however, is where things start to get tricky for the Golden Gophers. They will go on the road in the Big House and lose to the Michigan Wolverines, even with all the talent they lost from a year ago. Blake Corum, J.J. McCarthy, all those pieces on defense. Still got a lot of nice pieces on defense coming back, including Will Johnson, including Ernest Hausman, including some other great secondary members that I'm not going to mention here. While I'm not in love with anyone in that quarterback room, they still got Donovan Edwards. They still got some really good pieces at wide receiver. Colston Loveland at tight end comes back. Michigan will be too much for the Golden Gophers to handle. And then they get to come back home to play the USC Trojans. Interesting game here, in my opinion. The Trojans have a lot of pieces on defense, but the defense has struggled the past couple of years, and that's putting it lightly. They get DeAnton Lynn as defensive coordinator. Miller Moss is now going to be leading this offense instead of Caleb Williams. He's got a great wide receiver room to work with. USC has a lot of talented pieces, and I think that defense is going to see a jump in play in 2024. While Minnesota, I think, is going to have a good defense, they'll contend well with the USC Trojans. I do think they lose this game at home, and USC brings home that win. So Minnesota drops down there to 4-2, but I think they are able to pick up a win right here against the UCLA Bruins. UCLA is a team that I just don't really like in 2024. They lose Dante Moore, they lose Carson Steele, they lose a lot of other talent. DeAnton Lynn is no longer there. Chip Kelly is no longer there. It's just a team that I think is going to see their wild struggles in 2024 and probably going to end up being one of the most disappointing teams in the country this upcoming year, even though the expectations probably aren't high to begin with. I think Minnesota goes on the road and is able to win that one. Close fight because I think UCLA has some pieces to be competitive, but Minnesota does win. They get their first bye week of the season, get to come back home and play the Maryland Terrapins. And Maryland, while the defense probably is going to end up being a little bit better than normal, again, past September, Maryland's defense has a lot of question marks. And while it has some solid talent on it this year, now there are even some question marks offensively because Talia Tagovailoa is gone, along with a lot of those pieces that made that offense great. And I think Minnesota's defense will be able to stand up to that. They will beat the Terrapins at home. They get to go on the road and play the Illinois Fighting Illini here, and I like Brett Bielema's squad for 2024. Luke Altmaier comes back, and even though there were times where he was not very good last season, I think he'll be better in 2024. They got some good pieces at running back, some really good defensive pieces do come back, but I do think Minnesota, with Max Brosmer at quarterback, I think they have the better quarterback play here, including having Daniel Jackson back at wide receiver. Illinois lost, I believe, one or two wide receivers to the NFL that really could have helped Luke Altmaier out this season. And I think Minnesota's defense stacks up to Illinois' defense and supersedes it. So that will be a road win for the Golden Gophers. But I will be honest with you, Golden Gopher fans, a little bit of spoilers here. I don't see you winning a game the rest of the way out. Because I really like this Rutgers Scarlet Knights team. A 7, 8, maybe even 9-win season is on the cards for this team, and they get their former quarterback. Ethan Kaliakmanis, I think, will beat his former team. Now, I know Kaliakmanis is not the explosive quarterback, but Rutgers has so many good defensive pieces. This game is in Piscataway. We've seen the story with Greg Schiano before, and Rutgers picks up the win against Minnesota in just two really tough games to close it out. I don't think you're beating Penn State at home even after the bye week. Drew Aller, yes, has to develop that downfield game still, but Penn State's still going to be an elite defensive team. They have one of the best running back duos in the entire country. Even though Keandre Lambert-Smith is gone, Julian Fleming is coming in there. A lot of other talented pieces in that wide receiver room. Speaking of the defense, you move Abdul Carter to his true position as an edge rusher. Penn State will be really good this year. They'll push for a playoff spot. And then I really like what Luke Fickell has done with this Wisconsin Badger team. You get Tyler Van Dyke, and I think he will excel in that system. We all know the Wisconsin's defense. It'll take a step up from where it was last year. It'll start to be back to that Wisconsin defense we saw pretty much every year under Paul Chryst. I like Luke Fickell and the Badgers in year 3, and I think they beat the Golden Gophers. So overall, I have 7-5, which considering the schedule, I don't think is a bad record. Could it be higher? Yes. I think 9-3 definitely is that ceiling. Max Brosmer is going to give this team good quarterback play. The running back room is good. The wide receiver room is good. The defense has some solid talent. It's just a hard schedule to contend with. And again, how much does the offense improve? We'll have to wait and see. We're going to move on to Deion Sanders and the Colorado Buffaloes next. Let me know what you think about the Gophers in the comment section below. And remember to play hard but tailgate harder. See you guys in the next one.